Hello, welcome to the video version of my Baldur's Gate 3 design documentation. This is the supporting documents for a level I've been working on to fit directly into Baldur's Gate 3. This level comprises of 6 different areas, although when creating an Unreal Engine I only made 3 of the areas due to time constraints. But the general idea is that it's a level built to flow directly through and into the existing Baldur's Gate 3 game. In this video, I'll be going over the 2 other parts individually, but this one is the overview and is also about the first part, which is the scout camp over at bullet point number 1. This is the first area that you'll likely encounter during the playthrough, as it's the area of the map that you'll reach most linearly. However, it is possible to end up in different areas of this zone, depending on the decisions that you make elsewhere in the game. So, some of the design choices that I made during this process will become clear. However, because it's a block out, a lot of the map ended up actually changing from what the initial paper plan was. Because what Baldur's Gate 3 does very well is cluttering their areas so they can be big and still feel lived in, which is an issue that you run into when blocking out, that you don't have that same clutter, and it leaves areas feeling very empty and open. However, the scenario that you encounter when reaching this scout camp is that the central settlement has sent this scouting party out to set up a camp here and keep an eye on the goblins, who have also created an outpost in the upper parts of the mountains. They sent a few scouts out a few days ago, and they haven't returned yet, so the scouts want you to go and find out what had happened to them whilst they stay and guard the outpost. So, Baldur's Gate is a game that's all about choices and freedom. Lets the player do a lot of kind of what they want to do in the order that they'd like to do them. So as soon as you're handed this quest, it's very possible that you can just decide not to do it. But it's also very possible that you're led with 2 major choices, and that's either to charge headfirst into the goblin camp and just try and deal with them straight away, or to go down and follow the riverside, which will lead you all the way back round to the back entrance of the outpost, which is an area and kind of a little map that's provided to you by the scouts that are there. So, choosing to head down and go down the long way, you'll encounter a few story beats. However, initially, the story beats didn't actually exist. As you can see in this individual level design of this area, it's quite an empty area. There wasn't very much going on around here, but I ran into an issue not only of the size of it feeling way too long to run through, but that it was also quite a boring choice, really. There wasn't very much going on. So as you'll see in the screenshots as I go down, you'll see some of the iteration that I made, and you'll also be able to see the design choices I went with to be able to clutter that area, so to speak. So initially, this was what the area looked like. It was a very plain path that just led you right around. There wasn't very much extra going on. However, when going back, I made some choices, which you can see in this screenshot, that not only shortened, as you can see on my mouse, that not only shortened the path that you had to take on both sides, but also added 2 key beats during this kind of choice to run through. So the first key moment that you'll encounter is this trap set up in the side of the mountains by the goblins, with an injured scout held prisoner there essentially as bait. After dealing with the goblins and the traps, you'll manage to rescue the scout and send him back to the camp. However, not before receiving some information about the outpost, and also having the scout tell you what actually happened whilst they were scouting, telling you about the ambush and kind of things to expect up in the camp. So after you send that scout back on his way up to the camp and you've rescued him safely, you'll kind of, as you continue down the river, you'll encounter the next beat, which is you'll find a prisoner cage that's fallen down. It's basically fallen and smashed into the ground with a scout in the rubble down below, as well as an unconscious scout that's still stuck up in his cage. So again, similar to the previous scout, when running into him you have the option that with the right magic spells or items you're able to heal him and return him to camp, as well as receiving some more information. about what the scouts were uncovering and what's actually happening in the outpost, as well as just saving them and having the extra information. The more scouts that you save during this little side quest also influences both the response you'll get from the scouts and the settlement, but also the rewards you'll get at the end. So after saving both those scouts and following around to the back of the encampment, you'll run into a set piece. So no matter what point during the quest, whether you decide to go down the river and get the information or charge straight in right at the beginning, you'll always run into this set piece of the other scouts lined up in the center of the outpost, basically ready for execution, with the goblins and also the hobgoblin that's the leader of the outpost toying with them, which leaves the player kind of some agency to figure out however they want to deal with them, hopefully saving the scouts in the process. However, when they're dealt with, comes the kind of the follow-on from this quest, is that whilst initially the scouts and the settlement assumed the outpost was created to have a flank on the humans, it becomes quite clear that the outpost wasn't there to watch the village, but rather to keep an eye on the cave that's just slightly up the river. So the player learns that there's a group of goblins that have defected from the tribe, from the main tribe, and are held up in the mountains, in the caves, indicating perhaps that's where the player should go next, and what they might be able to do there could potentially give them an advantage in the ultimate goal of this zone being to attack and defeat the main goblin tribe. You know, whether that's being diplomatic with the goblins who, you know, want to see the main tribe be destroyed as much as the humans do, and having them fight with you, or potentially just having some information from them. So, as you can see down here, there's some screenshots from the game, kind of giving a good view of what I had in mind whilst making it. So you'll be able to see quite clearly that in places like the camp and by the riversides and along the pass, there's lots of clutter everywhere. So whilst without all of this, it does seem like a really big area. Same to my block out. When you add the clutter and everything that's happening around the area, it becomes less of an empty space to explore. The clutter fills the world quite well, makes it feel quite lived in, which is the style that the game would be built in, obviously. So you keep seeing some more screenshots of potential looks for entrances and locations within the outpost, which again is what I had in mind whilst designing it. So basically, that's the gist of the outpost area and this separate little quest which leads on to the cave. So yeah, thank you for listening to this documentation video of this piece. I'll be making another one for the settlement and the cave separately, and then a final one going over the zones that I'd planned but haven't been able to 3D model yet. So thank you.